Turning Point USA and host of the Charlie Kirk Show podcast. Charlie, tell me about the most important issue that you think are on college campuses right now. What are we dealing with? What's the most important?
So most important to students?
Yes.
Well, that's a really good question. They feel like they're being scammed. And this is something I think that older Americans need to listen to carefully. So there's a tendency to talk down to millennials and Generation Z as if they're lazy and they don't want to work. I agree they're probably lazier than previous generations, but they're not lazy.
They're not doing the 20-hour days like you.
No, they're not, but I would say they're lazier than prior generations, but there's a lot of hardworking, industrious young people out there, plenty. So to categorize a whole generation as that, I think is unfair. But there's a whole generation that has kind of been sold decades of lies, and they're ending up in a material calamity that they don't really know how to make sense of. I'll tell you what. For example, most young people should not go to college. It's a total scam. And no one wants to say it out loud.
Micro says it, but he's about the only guy that does.
Well, that's correct. You're right. And he lives it, too, from a blue-collar perspective. And so there's a generation of young people that borrowed money they do not have to study things that don't matter, to find jobs that don't exist. That's a micro line. And so then they graduate college. So then they find out that being a carpenter and a plumber is really necessary and needed, but they don't have any of those skills. But then we shut down the country for a year and a half. So finding jobs is harder than ever, and they're still burdened with all the student loan debt, on average $32,000 per borrower. And then they say, okay, we're going to reopen the country, even though we shut down the gyms, shut down the sporting events, shut down the social events, and let's maybe go buy a home. Well, all the homes are now 25 to 30% more expensive in the Sun Belt. Inflation is double digits. We have people that work for us at Turning Point USA where their rent has gone up by $800 a month. Wow. So they're $800 a month poorer than they were last year. And so they're starting to wring their hands and say, wait a second. I got the degree. I did the grade thing. I haven't gone to prison. Like, I've done the things I'm supposed to do, and I'm getting poorer. Yeah. And they're not wrong. And older generations are like, oh, just work harder. Like, really? Because if my employees work harder doing the same job, they're getting poorer every year because things are getting more expensive because of the $5 trillion we never should have created when we shut down our country. And we never should have shut down our country. So yes, the biggest issue for young people is they believe they're getting scammed, and they're right.
So